Welcome to my new series. This is a series where we discuss matters regarding end times. I have been brought up listening to preachers who used to preach in the same way as this young preacher is doing. And we all listen to it with rapt attention, with the great relief that we will be raptured when trouble hits the earth.
I'll give you some reasons why I believe we're living in the end times. And I'm going to give you some Bible promises about the rapture. Then I'm going to give you 5 reasons tonight why I preach and why I believe that the rapture will happen before the tribulation happens. You may say, well, this is really not that big of an issue. Well, I don't believe it is that big of an issue to me because I'm not going to be here for it.
Most Protestant Christians hold to this view, just as is this pastor. They think that they will be raptured out before the Great Tribulation. This theory was propagated to a great extent by the movie named Left Behind. According to this theory, the following are the sequences that would happen. The world would continue in the same way as it has always been. Suddenly, believing Christians will disappear into thin air because of the rapture, and they will be living with Christ for 7 years in heaven. Just as the rapture happened, catastrophe will hit the earth. All TV channels will report of the news of the missing people. They will also report about deaths that happened in many places. Flights will crash because controlling pilots have been raptured. Cars will go haywire and cause big traffic mayhem as the car drivers have disappeared because of the rapture. Trains will lose its control. There could be many runaway trains which will have to be stopped by switching off the electricity of the overhead cables. Every place on earth will become a crime scene. The emergency services like the ambulance, police, fire engines will blare out sirens and swish past the standing traffic to help the ones that have been exposed to the danger. And it will be a scene to watch. If you happen to be one of those unfortunate ones who missed the rapture, you will be labeled as left behind. Constant news reports of clothes dumped in the streets, parks, offices will be reported as the owners had been raptured. As the confusion peaks in, people will be ready to sacrifice their national boundaries and pride for their safety. Suddenly, a nice talking person with sinister ideas will be catapulted into the office of the ruler of the world. This person would be the dreaded Antichrist who will subjugate human race and rule the world with an iron fist. The left behind Christians have only one way now. They will have to die as a martyr by denying the seal of the Antichrist. That is their only hope to reach heaven. The sequence of what I have explained to you is commonly called as the pre-tribulation rapture theory. The question that we need to ask is this how the Bible says about the second coming? Did Jesus, his apostles, the prophets, and the church fathers teach about his second coming in the same way? Let us do a deep dive. In the Gospels, we see Jesus speaking about his second coming in Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21, and Mark chapter 13. So should we not look directly into those passages to understand what Jesus told about his own second coming? We need to establish a timeline while we read through the scripture passages so that we place each event in the prophecy in a sequence as Jesus describes it. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 24 and read through the first few verses. As mentioned earlier, Mark 13 and Luke chapter 21 are parallel passages to Matthew chapter 24. The whole chapter starts with his disciples asking him of his opinion about the great temple in Jerusalem, and Jesus replies as follows: "See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Now that is an unimaginable thing for his disciples. It's too mind-boggling for them to think that the huge temple will be completely demolished. But we know that in AD 70, the temple was completely demolished under the Roman general Titus Vespasian. Few of his disciples were alive during that event, but then many had died by then. During the siege of Jerusalem, Christians escaped the carnage as they believed the words of Jesus to run away from Judea when armies besieged Jerusalem. They had assumed that that particular prophecy for Jerusalem is being fulfilled. Such prophecies are called prophecies of dual fulfillment. In prophecies of dual fulfillment, a prophecy gets fulfilled twice. Now, I guess that would have charged up the curiosity of the disciples, and they asked him to tell, when shall all these things happen? They asked him what will be the signs of the end of the age. And Jesus answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows." Now let us draw a time scale for the events mentioned in the beginning of sorrows section. Firstly, we see false Christs or false messiahs would come. They will promise all kind of deliverance for the people of the world. Matthew chapter 25 verse 5. Secondly, we see wars and rumors of wars would come in. Matthew chapter 24 verse 6. Thirdly, we see there would be earthquakes and famines. Matthew chapter 24 verse 7. And fourthly, plagues or pestilences. Matthew chapter 24 verse 7, which corresponds to Mark chapter 13 verse 8. After the beginning of sorrows comes the sorrows. Some theologians name this period as the tribulation before the event we know as the Great Tribulation. Jesus continues his prophecy. He says, "Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." Notice the term "then." It clearly mentions it to say that it's a sequence. He continues, "And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." As we did with the section named Beginning of Sorrows, let us now plot the events in the timeline for this section, the Sorrows section. The first point deals with the increase in persecution, and that would be followed by betrayal and apostasy. We can see that in Matthew chapter 24 verse 9 and 10. Then we shall see that many false prophets would make a landfall, and will draw away many after their pernicious ways. This is also called the falling away. We see about that in Matthew chapter 24, verse 11 and 12. Then we see that many people will be martyred, and the gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all the nations of the world. All the ends of the earth will know of the gospel of the kingdom. Matthew chapter 24, verse 13 and 14. The next event in the timeline is what turns the entire world history to face the darkest hour of this age. This starts with the introduction of what we call as the abomination of desolation. This is what many theologians refer as the Antichrist figure. Paul calls him as the man of lawlessness. We will face this epitome of evil. Jesus continues, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand at the holy place." Matthew brackets it and says, "Whoso readeth, let him understand." "Then let him that be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither in the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, which was not since the beginning of the world, to this time, nor shall it ever be." The word used for great tribulation in the Greek is megathlipsis. It simply means that tribulation will engulf the entire world. The earlier tribulations faced by Christians were limited to a geography, but this coming one would span the entire known world. People of God will be forced to flee, and they will be hunted down and killed. Now let us plot the timeline for the period of the Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation starts with the revealing of the man of lawlessness. He will unleash the most evil persecution against the people of God. Of those days, Jesus says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." During the time of the Great Tribulation, a group of people will do brisk business. These are the type of people who enjoy the misery of others. They will try to misguide the people of God under the effects of severe tribulation. Jesus says, "Then if any man say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great wonders and signs, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be." Jesus is making amply clear that his second coming will be visible to all. It will not be a secret coming. He then uses an idiom which means it will be obvious for all to see. The event will be known to all. The idiom is, "Wheresoever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather." This is the point where Jesus explains about the point at which he will come. Pay attention to this. This is the key. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Notice the time he is putting in this passage. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, a great cosmic event will happen, which will shake up the entire universe. The sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars will fall from the heavens, and the powers of heavens shall be shaken. At this point, Luke says, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. This is the time when the rapture will happen. It is not a secret event where people do not even realize that the rapture has happened till the news reports come in. The world is ushered towards a climax where the Son of Man will come in his glory and all eyes shall see him. So what have I done here? I just read the scriptures as it is. Do you think that the rapture would still be a secretive event? This is the end of the first part of this series. If you like this content, please give a thumbs up, subscribe it, and do not forget to click on the bell icon so that you will be notified of the future updates. Thank you.